Welcome to Gather for Wellness Radio, brought to you by gatherforwellness.com, where we bring wellness experts to you so you can listen, learn, implement, and thrive.
I'm your host, Becky Litwicki, and today is episode number 10. Today, our special guest is Melissa Smith. Melissa has become a stress and fatigue expert through her training to become a naturopath, nutritional therapist, and transformational coach. She's the founder of Vitality Nutrition, and although she's based in London, she serves people via Skype in Europe and the US. Here's a sneak peek.
Most people don't really experience what it is to feel abundant vitality. That it's not, health and vitality really isn't just the absence of disease. It's brimming vitality. It's waking up every morning and bouncing out of bed and having sustained energy. Most people don't feel that. The status quo is, if I'm 40 and I have a few aches and pains, well, that's expected.
Yes.
If I'm losing my memory at the age of 40, that's expected. When actually, no, you should have a really strong memory. You should be able to learn a new language at the age of 80. That is the benchmark for brimming health.
Thank you so much for being here today, Melissa. I'm so excited for everyone to listen to your show. I know that your experience in your past life has really helped you to overcome some things that I think a lot of people deal with. So can you go ahead and share your story with everyone?
Sure. I've been a naturopath and nutritional therapist for about 5 years. And before that, I basically worked in an industry that was very stressful, and I just lived a generally stressful life. Mm-hmm. Not enough sleep, not really taking care of myself, really fast-paced lifestyle. And even in my mid-20s, actually, that led to burnout. Mm. So I had adrenal burnout where I was in bed for about 2 weeks and kind of picked myself up and kept going with how I was being. Yeah. And it wasn't really until about 5 years ago that I started to realize that, I was really heading down that same path again, really sacrificing my health, not taking care of myself, putting myself last really in terms of priority, and, really focusing on work and social life. And, there just came a point where I really just stopped and reassessed everything, and started to explore nutritional therapy as a way to, really understand how to nourish my body, and then found naturopathy as well, which is this holistic, healthcare system that really looks at the whole person in terms of, how to restore health. And so then I made a decision that I wanted to study those. So I studied those about 5 years ago, became a naturopath and a nutritional therapist. And then I continued my education because I love to learn, and this field really fascinates me. And so then I went to learn about coaching and transformational nutrition coaching in particular to really understand how to change behaviors and make new habits stick, because that was one thing that I really felt, I experienced myself, that even though I wanted to change things, I'd start a new healthy habit, for example, for a period of time and then really go back to where I was before. Mm-hmm. And I started seeing that in my clients as well. And so I went and trained in transformational nutrition coaching. That's really helped me personally make habits that stick, as well as clients. And so having experienced a lot of stress and fatigue, so with obviously adrenal burnout comes a lot of fatigue. Yeah. I now specialize in stress and fatigue, specifically helping entrepreneurial women who are stressed and tired really liberate themselves from stress, as well as multiply their energy so that they can achieve their ambitious goals while they avoid burnout. And so that's really about helping women live in this optimal state of well-being so that they can achieve their goals and be happy and peaceful and and not so stressed, which is so common in today's society.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
totally. And somewhere I heard you say that you've come to learn nutrition and exercise are just the starting point. What other things should people be focused on to improve or to change their bad stress and to feel their best?
Absolutely. Well, this came as a revelation to me. We often hear about nutrition and stress, or nutrition and exercise, being the foundation of health. And obviously they absolutely are. They are part of the foundation of health. But the other things that came to me were really about who I was being, and quite often we don't see that. We're invisible to how we're being in the world and how we're reacting in the world, or reacting to triggers and stresses in the world. And so mindset is something that is really important to focus on, because our mindset often goes back to, our mindset is made up of beliefs that are often conditioned when we're children, right? So
Yes.
We have these beliefs, and our beliefs really inform our thoughts and how we see the world and how we experience life. And so if you have these beliefs that really stress you out, that maybe conflict with the environment that you have, that can obviously lead to a lot of stress, and stress can really impact obviously health.
Yeah.
So your mindset has a huge impact on how healthy you are. And this is one of the reasons why I love naturopathy, because naturopathy really looks at physical health, your spiritual health, psychological health, as well as your emotional health, because all of those play a really big part in your vitality. And if you have any kind of misalignment, or if any of those aspects of yourself are out of integrity, then that can manifest as symptoms as well as illness.
Absolutely.
if they persist for so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, nutrition and exercise are great, but you really need to foster a really holistically healthy mindset, and how you hold yourself in the world.
Yeah. I feel like with the beliefs like you're talking about, sometimes it can be really difficult because those are what we've known to be true in our mindset for so long. It can be really hard sometimes to actually identify that it's something that is maybe false, or that could be proven wrong by someone else's experience or something like that. So how can somebody start to identify beliefs that are getting in the way of their healing?
Great question. So I have a process that I take people through when I coach them, but some of the things that they can start doing is to really start looking at their thoughts, and maybe being more aware of their thoughts. Often we walk through life and we're not even aware of what we're thinking. We really let our mind control us. So firstly, just starting to be aware of your thoughts and really trying to delve into what are my thoughts actually telling me? What beliefs are behind those thoughts? Is it that I have low self-confidence, low self-esteem? Am I frustrated that I'm not being heard, or am I scared of being heard? Am I scared of rejection? Do I have a perfectionist mentality? And it really is down to the language that you use. And I often recommend people to firstly become aware of their thoughts and start to maybe write them down,
Sure.
and then seeking professional help, seeking the advice of a coach and the support of a coach to really help you untether those beliefs, because quite often they're in the unseen. They go back to when we were children, and they're often in the unconscious mind.
Right.
So it can take some work to really start to bring them to the forefront and to be able to analyze them.
Absolutely. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So with burnout and adrenal fatigue, although I feel like it's been becoming more and more common, like you said, we lived in such a fast-paced, stressed-out environment so often. Is it true that it can be somewhat difficult to recognize that it kind of sneaks up on you as stress just builds and builds, or is there certain things that people should be looking for?
Well, it's there's the expert in adrenal burnout, what's his name, Dr. Wilson, and he says it's a 21st century syndrome. Essentially most people have some kind of symptoms of stress and fatigue.
Sure.
So they're on some level of the spectrum, essentially, from the initial kind of stressed phase to the exhaustion phase. So things like reliance on stimulants, feeling tired in the morning, having unrefreshing sleep, having poor brain function. These symptoms are so common in society. It's almost like people just accept them as being, symptoms of the modern life.
Right. Totally. Yep.
So quite often people just overlook them and say, oh, it's just because, this is my lifestyle now. But, there are particular signs that you can look to really determine where you are at on the stress spectrum.
Yeah.
So things like, feeling really tired in the morning and awake at night is a really key sign that, your daily rhythm is disrupted. And that's one of the key signs that we see before we see people getting to the exhaustion phase, which is where your just purely exhausted.
Sure.
You just have hardly any vitality, very low mood, poor digestion, poor brain function in particular, are key symptoms there.
Like you said, working with a naturopath can definitely be helpful in that situation. Who else should see a naturopath for wellness?
Sure, I think everybody should see a naturopath. Just simply because it's the holistic approach that naturopaths take. It really is, a holistic philosophy and a system of healthcare that really encourages, it supports the natural healing ability of the body, and it's all about preventative medicine. So really looking at symptoms as a sign of imbalance in the body, which, quite often, I hear this all the time, from friends and family as well as clients, that they'll go to, their GP with a range of different symptoms and there isn't really any solutions there for them.
Right.
And that's simply because, GPs, as fantastic as modern medicine is in certain circumstances, when it comes to really, addressing symptoms before they progress to disease, it's something that they're simply not trained in.
Right.
And so, if you have a range of different symptoms, whether it's, fatigue or digestive disturbances or little aches and pains, headaches and things like that, it really pays to go and see a naturopath because they take this holistic approach. So, when a client comes into clinic and when I take a health history, that health history takes about an hour and a half to take because it really considers the whole person. So, everybody is individual, everybody has their own individual health history, their own genetics, their own lifestyle, their own way of thinking, their own, psychological mindset, their own emotional response to the environment that they're in. So it's a very tailored individual approach. So, any kind of symptom is really a sign of imbalance in the body. And so we look to address those imbalances to really bring the body back into a state of harmony and balance. Because the body has an amazing ability to heal. It really has these self-healing mechanisms that we don't really acknowledge enough in modern medicine. Your bones are able to heal themselves,
Yes.
For example. But, your body really always wants to bring your health back into balance. It's always striving to achieve that balance. And so really it's about bringing clients back into that state of balance. And most people don't really experience what it is to feel abundant vitality. That it's not, health and vitality really isn't just the absence of disease. It's brimming vitality. It's waking up every morning and bouncing out of bed and having sustained energy.
Right.
Most people don't feel that. The status quo is, if I'm 40 and I have a few aches and pains, well, that's expected.
Yes. Yes.
If I'm losing my memory at the age of 40, that's expected. When actually, no, you should have a really strong memory. You should be able to learn a new language at the age of 80. That is the benchmark for brimming health.
Like we said, it can kind of just be this building up of stressful events and not taking care of ourselves, and it kind of just sneaks in as things that we expect to happen as we age, and it seems a bit silly to just say, well, take stress out of your life. I think sometimes people, some coaches tend to make it sound too easy, like, oh, just make your life less stressful. Well, that's not always possible, and some stress is actually good for us. But I think a lot of times there are so many hidden stressors that silently wear down on our bodies when we're not even realizing that they're there. Can you talk about some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first point I wanted to just make is absolutely, you are right. We cannot avoid stress. And in fact, stress can be fantastic. Our ancestors really survived on stress. If you have a really good stress response, which means if you react really quickly to a stressor, that is a real strength. It's just that our modern environment obviously, overstimulates that stress response. And so then we get this negative stress. So absolutely, we need this positive stress. Stress can actually be growth. And we need both support and stress in life in order to grow. You only really make changes to your life when you're really stressed. So stress is definitely necessary. It's just the type of stress and also how we react to it.
Yes.
So that's the first point. And then, there's lots of hidden stresses that assault our bodies on a daily basis. And so some of the key ones really, like thinking about physical stress on the body, are things like diet. So, if you're having a highly processed diet with, say, lots of trans fats and excess sugar and processed dairy and, wheat-based products, even soy, they can put a real stress on the body. They're quite pro-inflammatory, and what they're finding more and more in research is that what is preceding most of the common diseases these days, so cardiovascular disease, depression, autoimmune diseases, thyroid diseases, cancer, is inflammation. And so stress precedes inflammation. So any of these stresses leads to inflammation and can therefore lead on to disease. So, food can have a dramatic impact on your health. Yes. As well as things like nutritional insufficiencies. And, we're seeing more deficiencies in clinic these days, just simply because the soils that we grow our food in just don't have the nutrient content that they used to, say, 80 years ago. And so people just aren't getting their basic needs in the diet that they're having. And so when you have these nutrient insufficiencies, essentially the body, as we said before, the body's always trying to keep in balance, but if it doesn't have the raw factors that it needs to actually keep the body in balance, then you can start to get imbalances in the body, and that can stress out the body.
Sure.
As well as food intolerances, and this one kind of flies under the radar quite often because it's not something that firstly GPs are trained in. So if you went to GPs with certain symptoms, let's say digestive symptoms, they may not, they would very unlikely to think of food intolerances. They might look at food allergies, which is different to food intolerances.
Right.
And so some of the key foods there are things like eggs, which are, quite a healthy food, but, they can cause digestive distress, as well as obviously dairy, wheat, even citrus fruits, soy, and corn. They're kind of the top ones that tend to cause food intolerances, and there can be many more. And also stress eating as well. If you're eating and you're under stress, your digestive function isn't really working as well as it should, because when we're stressed, we're really not thinking about digesting. We're thinking of running away from whatever stress it is.
Yeah.
And so, that can cause a host of stress on the body, really.
Sure.
And lead to food intolerances, actually. And then there's environmental stresses as well. So, considering, what your office is like, what your house is like, whether you have lots of, household chemicals, cleaning products, even electromagnetic radiation that we don't really think about can really affect us, because at the end of the day, we're actually electromagnetic we're electrical rather way before we're chemical beings. So they can have a profound effect on people if they're in, a highly polluted zone. So those are the kind of key, physical unseen stresses. And then there are many more in terms of, like I said before, how we're thinking can be unseen in a way, because we're not bringing awareness to who we're being.
Sure. Yeah. I want to back up a little bit. I feel like we could do a whole entire show just on the little bit that you just talked about, but I just want to dive a little bit more into a couple of them. So as far as when you talked about those nutrient deficiencies, are there certain deficiencies that continue to show up more regularly for people, and would you advise a general supplementation protocol for that, or what are your tips for avoiding the deficiency of nutrients?
Sure. So there are some key nutrients that just aren't in the soil as much anymore. So, a lot of the minerals like magnesium and zinc, as well as selenium. Selenium is another one that is being depleted, and iodine as well is being more commonly seen in London, especially what I've been seeing as well, because people just aren't eating iodine-rich foods like seaweed and fish. And so those are probably the main one. It's mainly minerals that I'm seeing in clinic. What was the rest of your question?
Well, so with that, do you recommend people supplement, or what's the best way to avoid that?
So when clients come in, obviously I do an in-depth health history, and I can really tell from a lot of the symptoms that they're having as to what nutrients they need most. So it really is a tailored approach. One of the best things to do to help prevent any insufficiencies is to juice, because you're getting a lot more nutrient content in a smaller, more compact meal, I guess.
Yeah.
So juicing, especially green leafy vegetables, apples and things like that. I mean, vitamin C is also another nutrient that we're consuming a lot less. If you compare the vitamin C content of an apple these days, I think it equates to one apple in the 1920s equates to something like 26 apples now. So
Wow.
not that you would you juice 26 apples in one go. That's a lot of sugar, but it's a great way to get a lot of nutrient density into one meal. And then also looking at food state supplements as well. I wouldn't recommend any practitioner strength supplements unless you were coming to see a practitioner.
Sure.
But food state supplements are fantastic because they essentially dehydrate plant matter. So whether it's things like beetroot, acai, pomegranate, all the superfoods that we hear about, the ones that are already nutrient dense, and they basically dehydrate them into a powder that you can put into the smoothies. So that's a really fantastic thing to do. The other thing that I do and I recommend is to make a salt solé. Don't know if you've heard of that before.
I have not. No.
No, it's an old kind of health practice, I guess, and it's something that I've just started incorporating in my health regime.
Yeah.
And essentially it's taking, because obviously sea salt, rock salt is very mineral rich, and we're very much lacking in minerals. So we essentially get a cup of, say, Himalayan pink salt, or some sea salt, pure sea salt, and you place it in a jar with some purified water, and you want to get the richest concentration of salt in that water. So essentially you dissolve as much salt as you can until the water can't take any more, and you'll tell that by the fact that there's still salt at the bottom. When you leave it overnight, essentially, and whatever salt has been absorbed is basically the most concentrated that the water can get.
Yeah.
And so every morning you take a teaspoon of that, and use plastic, don't use metal because it will react.
Okay.
You take a teaspoon of that and you put it in a small glass of water, like 250 ml, and you drink it when you first wake up. And so you're getting your minerals, which is very alkalizing for the body. And it's also rehydrating you, because we lose a lot of water and electrolytes overnight.
Yeah.
So
I've
it's
heard
a fantastic
about just
thing
doing
to do.
sea salt, but I've not heard about the soaking of it. That's awesome.
And it's great for those who have adrenal, any adrenal issues, because salt, like quite often, those with adrenal issues tend to crave salt. And one of the reasons for that is because their adrenals need it specifically for blood pressure as well. So if you have any dizziness, any kind of dizziness on standing up or anything, you may well have low blood pressure, which is a key sign that we see in clinic for adrenal fatigue. So that can really help with with hydrating as well as supporting the adrenal glands.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So those
I'm
are some of the
give
things.
That a try.
Yeah, definitely do.
Very good. And then I also wanted to just touch real quick on food intolerances, because I think this one, especially lately for me, has personally been a big one. Like, I think people sometimes think eat healthy. Well, healthy means different things to so many different people, and one vegetable could be really healthy and make somebody feel good, and then it could be really disruptive to somebody else's digestive system and things like that. So what do you recommend for people? How do you identify food intolerances?
That is such a great question, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that healthy foods can also cause a reaction, and it's not just those top 5 or 6 that I mentioned before. I recently found out, or about a year ago actually, that I had an intolerance to coconuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, and navy beans. And I never would have guessed them. Obviously coconut, you think about, coconut oil, coconut is everywhere.
Right.
So the first step really is to do an elimination diet, and that's really the gold standard in terms of testing. And so essentially what you do is you go onto a low allergen diet for about 2 weeks, sometimes a month, it depends. And then you challenge each food. So you challenge the food by introducing just one food. So let's say it's almonds.
Mm-hmm.
So you eat almonds 2 or 3 times in one day, and then you monitor your symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how whether you have any symptoms that come up, and then you note them down. If you don't have any symptoms, and you basically monitor this for 3 days. If you don't have any symptoms, then you introduce the next challenge food, and so you keep doing this. So that you're basically listening to your body in terms of the symptoms that it's coming up with. So the general symptoms are things like aches and pains, digestive disturbances, so gas, bloating, cramps, headaches are quite common, heart palpitations as well, because when our body responds to everything that we put in it, whether we're thinking things or whether we're eating food. So it's been shown that our heart rate increases whenever we ingest anything that we're intolerant to.
Yeah.
I
introduced beef. I'm working through an elimination diet right now, and I recently introduced beef, and I woke up the next morning with my heart, like, I thought it was just going to beat out of my chest, and I was so anxious. It was so weird. So yeah, it's not always like the digestive disturbances that I think people automatically assume. Like you said, there can be so many other effects on our body.
Yeah, I mean, even brain fog is also a big one, or anxiety, anxiety, depression,
Yes.
some really big symptoms that you can experience from food intolerances. And again, these are things that so many people go to the GP with, and that they don't really get any support with, because the knowledge isn't there. And so so the first point is an elimination diet, to really look at what's going on and to identify the key things. And then if you still are receiving some symptoms or experiencing some symptoms on the diet that you end up with, then I might recommend going for an actual test where they test your saliva to really tell what's going on.
Yeah.
So and that can give a really clear outcome. Like for me, when I said that I responded to coconuts, it wasn't actually until I actually tested it that I came up with. Yeah. So sometimes navy beans. I mean, I hardly ever eat navy beans, but for some reason they came up, and it's something that I perhaps wouldn't have considered in the elimination diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Lots of great information. So what are your favorite tips and tools for relieving the stress that we can relieve and getting over our fatigue?
Sure. So there are so many different tips, and obviously it's individual to everybody, because everybody needs different tips. So I'll just kind of rattle off a few different suggestions.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's really important to be mindful that stress is energy. And quite often fatigue can be that stuck energy, based on a stress that we're feeling, because emotions are energy as well. So if we're resisting a situation, that can obviously cause a lot of stress and fatigue. And so a lot of the tools that I use are really firstly about shifting that energy, so we can kind of have a quick resolution to how we're feeling. So it can be simple things from like breathing. Obviously breathing, when you breathe deeply into the belly, that activates the sympathetic nervous system, which basically signals to the body that you're wanting to rest and digest. And, we can't, our physiology will respond to anything that we do. So, we can't trick ourselves, or we can trick ourselves, when we're stressed. If we start to breathe really deeply, that will signal to the nervous system to calm down. So that can be quite a rapid way of calming down the stress response. So if you just simply breathe deeply into your belly for 3 or 4 breaths, or however long it takes, and really breathing in that oxygen as well, so we're getting more oxygen to the brain, can really help calm us down. As well as grounding exercises. And I find that, if you are getting really overwhelmed with a situation, this can help really, really immensely. So the one thing I tell clients all the time is to start to visualize a stop sign, so a big red flashing stop sign in their mind that kind of tells them to, stop what they're thinking, and really go back into themselves and activate the 5 senses. So, and this basically helps ground us. So, essentially the approach is to see this visualize this stop sign, and then look at the room, look at 5 things that you can see and name them. and then look at 4 things that you can touch and start to touch them. So whether it's, a pen, a piece of paper, a bit of clothing, your hair, and then 3 things that you can hear. So you're basically becoming more aware of your immediate surroundings.
Yeah.
2 things that you can smell and 1 that you can taste. And so essentially that really is about focusing on the moment right now so that you can regain composure, in a stressful environment.
Yeah, I love that. I've not heard of that one before. I'm going to try that one too.
Because emotions are energy, so, and our energy will follow our thoughts. So if we start to focus on the more, the reality of our situation around us versus what's going on in our head, it really calms down. And, just simple things like stop doing whatever you're doing and start to nourish yourself, whether it's, going for a walk, calling a loved one. Calling a loved one has actually been shown to activate the sympathetic nervous system to actually calm you down. Simple things like putting the hand on your heart stimulates oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, the love hormone. So there's really simple things that we can do to stimulate our physiology.
Right.
And then also mindfulness. And mindfulness is something that's been life-changing for me. And that's really about having 100% focus on the present without any judgment. That whole process of doing just one thing at a time and taking one step at a time can really help to modulate fear.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I think some people feel like having mindfulness and living in the present moment is almost like so far away from where they're at right now. How do you recommend kind of like getting into that? What practice? Obviously the one you just did with the stop sign, that can be helpful. Are there any other specifics for that?
Definitely. I tell people to start off with banal tasks, or habits like, say, brushing your teeth. So really focusing on, counting how many times you brush each tooth and how many times you floss each tooth. So being really present, really engaged in what you're doing, or even washing the dishes. I love washing the dishes. It's really therapeutic for me. So, really feeling the sensations of the water and the soap on your hands and, the dishes, and really focusing on cleaning everything. And it's a form of meditation, really.
Right.
So just simple 5-minute tasks that you can, engage in on a regular basis to really help practice that mindfulness can really help.
Beautiful. Awesome. So for people who need more support with this, what do you recommend for ongoing care or for deeper healing?
Well, first of all, looking for like-minded people that support you can be really great for people who are stressed. It's so important to have these like-minded people that really understand you and have your best interests and are there to really just listen without judgment. So that would be the first thing. And then, obviously getting professional support in whatever you need. I've got a method that I've created called the Be Stress-Free method, and it really embodies a lot of what we've spoken about today in terms of, eliminating holistic stress and really being that person that we want to be without being affected by the external stresses so much.
Right. I know you mentioned you have like a VIP day. Are you able to serve clients in places other than London with that?
Yeah, so I have, so my Be Stress-Free method is really a philosophy, and, as I'm a naturopath, I really work to a client's specific needs. So I have this philosophy. It's not really a program, even though I call it that, because everybody's at a different stage. Everybody has different needs, and so it's really just applying whatever tools and techniques that particular person in front of me needs. Right. And so to that end, I basically created different program formats to suit different people. So I do have this VIP day, and I operate purely on Skype, just simply because clients find it easier, it's more flexible, they don't have to travel. I'm in London, so travel can be quite stressful. And so it just allows them to have more flexibility, and it allows that flexibility for me as well, because I'm all about crafting your own lifestyle based on what you need. And because if you start to live by other people's rules, that's really a key sign for creating stress in your life.
Yes, Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a VIP day, and I operate by Skype, but I also have 3 and 6 month programs as well as workshops. Actually, I'm running my first workshop in January, which is really exciting.
Beautiful. And you said that's a detoxification workshop?
No, so I have a 10-day detox program that I'll be running online, but the workshop is around the Be Stress Free method. So it's essentially taking the VIP day, which really just touches on the 4 key areas of stress. So physical stress, psychological stress, emotional stress, and spiritual stress. And we just delve into those a little bit in terms of, what the key stresses are in each area, so that people can experience dramatic reduction in their stress in life.
Wonderful. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Melissa, if you had just 5 minutes to create better wellness for yourself, what would you do? I
would meditate.
I love that. I think that's like 75% of the guests answer with meditation.
Really?
It's just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's so cool.
It's really a game changer. I can really feel the difference when I haven't meditated. And so, just the ability to be able to connect to that vital, vibrant core inside me, that quiet, unchanging self, being able to calm my thoughts, and realizing that I can be in control of them is such an empowering and liberating experience. And, like I said, your mind really, has so much power over your health. So that would definitely be my solace, my little quiet space.
Love that. All right. And then what is your most powerful health habit?
Oh, probably meditation. Yeah, I mean, meditation and gratitude. Gratitude and acceptance for, for life as it is. I think, so much of stress is caused by resistance of the challenges that we face, when in fact we really need both, like I said at the start, we need both stress as well as support in life. We need to be accepting of both of those aspects, both of those dynamics of life, in order to really let go of stress. And, the meditation and the gratitude for me really create emotional resilience. So just being resilient to external stresses and being able to detach from them as well, it is probably the biggest health habit. Even though I specialize in nutritional therapy in many ways, the practices that I really, I kind of hold up the most are meditation and gratitude for really fostering a healthy mindset.
And I think that it just goes to it. There's so much consistency and congruency with everything you've said, because like we started out saying, nutrition and exercise are both very important, but you can put the healthiest foods into your body, and if you're full of toxic thoughts, they're not going to digest properly. They're not going to absorb the way that you want them to, and it's kind of I don't want to say it's worthless, because there's still going to be more advantage to that than putting in junk, but it's just not nearly as impactful.
Absolutely. And this goes back to the fundamentals of naturopathy, really, which is take a holistic approach. Not one health habit is responsible for your health. It's what you do, how you think, who you are, your whole lifestyle, and who you're being, that really makes the impact.
Totally. Melissa, this has been so beautiful. I'm so grateful for you sharing all your wisdom, and we're really glad that you were able to join us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be able to talk about what I'm so passionate about. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Becky.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode of Gather for Wellness Radio. We'd greatly appreciate if you'd leave a review over on iTunes, Stitcher, or the blog. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends, family, and on social media. We hope you'll join us for the next episode. But until then, keep being awesome.